In the autumn of 1823, the village of Thornwick nestled against the windswept moors of northern England, its stone cottages huddled under a sky heavy with rain. The fields, once golden with barley, lay barren, and the air carried the sharp bite of coal smoke and damp earth. Thornwick's people lived hand to mouth, their lives tethered to the land and the mercy of its masters. Among them was Eliza Mayhew, a girl of 18 with chestnut hair and eyes that held the weight of unspoken burdens. Her hands, rough from years of scrubbing and sewing, worked tirelessly to keep her family afloat. Her father, Thomas Mayhew, had been a farmer of modest means, but poor harvests and long nights at the tavern had stripped him of pride and coin. The Mayhew cottage sagged under a leaking roof, its hearth barely warm, and Eliza's days were spent mending her siblings' clothes and coaxing meals from meager scraps. Her mother was a fading memory, lost to fever years ago, leaving Eliza to mother her younger sister, Rose, and brother, Samuel, though she was little more than a child herself. The village whispered of desperate times, of men selling what little they had to settle debts. At the market, women spoke in hushed tones of livestock and land traded away, but darker tales surfaced. Daughters bartered like goods. Eliza overheard these stories, her stomach twisting, but she never believed her father would betray her. Thomas's debts, however, had grown beyond his control. Owed to Mr. Gideon Harrow, the landlord who ruled Thornwick from his manor on the hill. Harrow was a man of 50, with a face like weathered granite and eyes that gleamed with hunger. His wealth came from tenants' rents and broken promises, his manor a fortress of iron gates and cold stone. Eliza had seen him in the village square, his black coat stark against the crowd, his gaze lingering on her with unsettling intent. She turned away, unaware that her fate had already been sealed in a tavern's smoky corner. One evening, as dusk painted the moors in shades of gray, Thomas stumbled into the cottage, his breath sour with ale. Eliza sat by the fire, stitching a tear in Samuel's shirt, her siblings' thin faces lit by the flickering light. Thomas's voice was rough, his words cutting through the quiet. He told Eliza to prepare herself, that she was to go to Harrow's manor at dawn. His debts, he said, were too heavy, and Harrow had offered a solution. Eliza's needle stilled, a prick of blood blooming on her finger. She asked what he meant, though fear tightened her throat. Thomas avoided her eyes, mumbling of an arrangement, a union that would clear his slate. Harrow sought a young wife, and Thomas had traded his daughter for a handful of coins and a promise of freedom from debt. Rose's eyes widened, and Samuel clutched Eliza's arm, but Thomas's shout silenced their protests, his guilt masked by anger. Eliza felt the ground shift beneath her, her future swallowed by the manor's shadow. Morning came, gray and unrelenting. Eliza stood outside the cottage, a small bundle of clothes tied in a shawl. Rose sobbed, clinging to her, while Samuel's silent tears broke her heart. Thomas was absent, likely drowning his shame at the tavern. Eliza whispered promises to return, though doubt gnawed at her. The path to the manor wound through fields and over streams, each step a weight she could barely carry. The gates loomed like a judgment, and a grim housekeeper led her through halls of polished wood and stern portraits. Harrow waited in a parlor, his smile sharp, his voice smooth as he welcomed her. He spoke of her place in his home, his words heavy with unspoken demands. Eliza's skin prickled, but she bowed her head, hiding the spark of defiance that flickered within. Her mind churned, already seeking a way out. The manor was a prison of luxury, its grandeur a mockery of Eliza's loss. Her room was a narrow attic space, its window barred, the air thick with dust and despair. By day, she scrubbed floors and mended linens, her hands raw from work. By night, Harrow called her to the dining hall, where he sat alone, his eyes tracing her as she served him. He spoke of their future, of duties she would fulfill, his tone leaving no room for refusal. His touches were subtle, a hand grazing her wrist, a linger too close, each one a reminder of her vulnerability. Eliza learned to move silently, her face a mask, concealing the rage that simmered beneath. She thought of Rose and Samuel, of the cottage they might lose without her sacrifice, and that kept her from crumbling. She began to observe Harrow, noting his late-night visitors, men who arrived in secrecy and left with heavy pockets. One stormy night, as rain lashed the manor's windows, Eliza crept downstairs to fetch a candle. She passed Harrow's study, its door slightly open, a sliver of light spilling out. Voices drifted from within, low and tense. Curiosity overcame fear, and she peered through the gap. Harrow sat at a desk, a ledger before him, its pages filled with scrawled figures. A cloaked man handed him a pouch, and Harrow wrote something, his face taut with calculation. Eliza's pulse quickened as she realized the truth. Harrow's wealth wasn't just from rents. He was entangled in illicit dealings, perhaps smuggling or extortion. The ledger was the key to his empire, and maybe to her freedom. She retreated to her room, her mind racing. If she could expose him, she might escape his grasp. Eliza became a ghost in the manor, her movements careful, her eyes sharp. She took on tasks near the study, polishing banisters or carrying linens, memorizing the household's rhythms. Harrow was meticulous, locking the study when he left, but his confidence bordered on carelessness. He believed fear kept his servants in line, especially a girl like Eliza. She found a loose floorboard in her attic room, a hiding place for her thoughts. With a stolen pencil stub, she wrote fragments of her siblings' laughter, her mother's songs, anchoring herself against despair. Her chance came during a banquet for Harrow's associates, the manor alive with clinking glasses and raucous laughter. The housekeeper was busy, the study unguarded. Eliza slipped inside, her heart pounding as she opened the ledger. Its pages detailed shipments, names, and sums that dwarfed any landlord's earnings. She tore a blank page from the back, copying entries about a coastal deal, her hand shaking but steady. The paper joined her writings under the floorboard, a fragile hope. Eliza knew the village magistrate, Mr. Caldwell, was a man of integrity, whispered to despise men like Harrow. If she could get her notes to him, Harrow might fall. Escaping the manor was the challenge. Its gates were locked, its grounds watched. Eliza noticed a delivery boy, Tom, who came weekly with supplies. He was young, with kind eyes, and spoke of a sister in the village. She began leaving him extra bread from the kitchen, earning his trust. One morning, as he loaded his cart, she slipped him the folded paper, whispering of Harrow's crimes and begging him to find Caldwell. Tom hesitated, then nodded, tucking the note into his coat. Eliza returned to her tasks, her chest tight with fear and anticipation. Days stretched into weeks, each one a test of patience. Harrow grew sharper, his temper flaring, as if sensing a shift. Eliza endured his scrutiny, her face blank, her hands steady. She sewed her memories into her dress's hem, each stitch a rebellion. One morning, hoofbeats broke the manor's silence. From her window, Eliza saw men in uniforms at the gates, their faces stern. Harrow's voice rose in protest, then fell silent. The magistrate had come, armed with evidence from the ledger, matched by Eliza's notes. Harrow's smuggling network, built on greed, had unraveled. He was led away, his manor left to whispers of scandal. Eliza gathered her shawl and left, the gates no longer a barrier. She returned to Thornwick, the cottage quieter now, Rose and Samuel waiting. Thomas was there, his eyes hollow, but Eliza had no words for him. She took her siblings' hands, vowing to build a life free of his shadow. She found work sewing in a nearby town, her needle threading hope into every seam. Harrow's name faded, a cautionary tale, but Eliza carried her victory in silence, a girl who had turned whispers into freedom.